I never imagined a simple ring could feel like an anchor dragging me under. That Tuesday morning in the glass-walled conference room on the 32nd floor of our downtown Chicago office, I sat at the long polished table trying to disappear into my notes. The morning sun poured through the windows, turning the sapphire on my left hand into a pool of deep ocean blue. Veronica Ashford's perfectly manicured nail tapped the table right in front of my ring. Is that supposed to be a sapphire? Her voice sliced through the quarterly projections briefing like a shard of ice. 20 pairs of eyes swiveled toward me. My stomach dropped. Amber. Sweetie. Where did you pick up that tragic little thing? Some charity bin. My throat tightened so fast I couldn't swallow. The ring suddenly burned against my skin. The delicate filigree band that my mother used to spin absently when she was lost in thought. I wanted to hide my hand under the table, but my muscles refused to move. Everyone was staring. The stone caught the light exactly the way it used to light up my mother's eyes when she wore it on special evenings. I'm sorry. The words died before they left my mouth. Veronica leaned forward, her cream silk blouse whispering against the chair. I couldn't help noticing you've been rotating the same 3 outfits for months now. Target clearance rack specials, right? And now this adorable attempt at jewelry. It's just so precious. Laughter rippled around the table. Not from everyone. My friend Nina 2 seats down looked horrified, eyes wide with secondhand embarrassment. A couple of others suddenly became very interested in their laptop screens. But Veronica's inner circle, Jennifer from marketing, a couple of account managers, ate it up. Jennifer actually snorted into her coffee. It's vintage, I managed. My voice smaller than I wanted. Vintage. Veronica repeated the word like it left a bad taste. Is that what we're calling thrift store finds these days? Because, honey, that setting looks like it came from one of those quarter machines at the grocery store. You know the kind, put in your coin and hope for the best. The laughter grew louder. Gerald Ashford, Veronica's father and our vice president, sat at the head of the table reviewing papers. He glanced up once at the commotion, saw his daughter holding court, and returned to his notes without a word. That silence was permission. My face burned. I looked down at the ring again. The sapphire wasn't huge, but it was flawless, cut with an old-world precision you rarely see anymore. My father once told me it had a story, something about European aristocracy. A London auction. A love so deep he'd paid a fortune to capture it in metal and stone. But I couldn't say any of that. I'd made a promise 3 years ago. And promises like that one don't break easily. Veronica kept going, warming to her audience. If you're going to play dress up with fake jewelry, at least commit. Get yourself a whole collection of dollar store sparklers and make it a statement piece. This sad solo act is just depressing. She waved her wrist, and her own sapphire bracelet, real, flawless, probably worth more than my annual salary, flashed in the sunlight. My fingers curled into a fist under the table. She was closer to the truth than she realized. The ring had belonged to someone who died. My mother, who'd worn it every single day until the rainy night the car hydroplaned on the interstate outside Milwaukee. I was 13. 1 minute she was humming along to the radio. The next, silence. Can we please get back to the quarterly projections? Timothy from finance ventured. Not defending me exactly. Just trying to move things along. Of course, Veronica said, leaning back satisfied. I just wanted to make sure Amber knew that if she needs fashion advice, I'd be happy to take her shopping somewhere that doesn't involve hoping the previous owner's bad luck doesn't transfer with the accessory. The meeting dragged on. Numbers flickered across the projector screen. People talked client retention, market volatility, pipeline deals. I sat there feeling skinned alive, every hidden part of me exposed under the fluorescent lights. When Gerald finally dismissed us, My legs shook as I stood. Veronica brushed past me on her way out, close enough that her expensive perfume wrapped around me like a threat. Really though, Amber? For me? If you're going to work at a place like Preston and Associates, you need to at least look like you belong. That charity shop vibe might fly at a non-profit, but here it's embarrassing for everyone who has to look at it. I had no response ready. 3 years at the firm, and I still hadn't found the words that would make her stop. Nina caught up with me in the hallway as the room emptied. "I hate her," she whispered fiercely. "I hate her so much." "It's fine," I said automatically. "It's not fine. None of this is fine. You should report her to HR. Her dad's the VP. Nina. Then tell her off. Stand up for yourself. Tell her the truth, who you really are." "That's not going to happen." Nina's expression softened. She didn't know the full story, but she knew enough to understand I had reasons for staying silent. I looked down at the ring again. Under the hallway lights it looked duller. Just metal and a blue stone that meant everything to me and nothing to anyone else. Some battles aren't worth revealing who you really are. That lesson had kept me safe, small, and invisible for 3 long years. Back at my cubicle, I pulled up the financial analysis I'd been working on. Numbers made sense when people didn't. If I focused hard enough on the spreadsheets, I could almost drown out Veronica's laughter echoing from her office down the hall. Almost. Later, in the bathroom, the mirror showed a stranger, red-rimmed eyes, blotchy cheeks, lips pressed white. I ran cold water over my hands and watched it swirl down the drain, wishing the morning would disappear with it. The ring glinted under the harsh light. I traced the filigree the way my mother used to, the gesture I'd inherited without realizing. I was 13 when the accident happened. Lawrence Collins, the man who had built an empire from nothing, who once commanded boardrooms and moved billions with instinct and intellect, became a ghost. The big house outside Chicago went quiet. Staff left one by one. He locked himself in his study for days, and I'd sit in the hallway doing homework just to feel close to him. On my 18th birthday, he finally called me in. The room smelled of old books and too much whiskey. "I can't do this anymore," he said. Not as apology, but fact. He set up a trust fund, enough for college, a modest apartment, a simple life. Then he gave me the ring. "Build something on your own. Amber, don't use my name. Don't tell people who you are. Promise me you'll succeed because of who you are, not whose daughter you are." I promised. What else could I do? He was breaking, and I was 18 and terrified and still grieving my mother. So I took the ring, the money, and the promise, and I left. That was 10 years ago. I'd kept the promise through college, through awful first jobs, and through every day of the past 3 years here. I'd let Veronica mock my clothes, my quietness, my everything, and never once said the words that would end it. Because some part of me still believed my father was right. If I succeeded as myself, it would mean something real. But standing in that bathroom, I wondered what exactly I was proving. That I could endure abuse? That I could shrink small enough to fit where I wasn't wanted? That I could protect a secret that was slowly suffocating me? Nina brought me coffee from the good place down the street. "She's getting worse," she said. "This isn't normal anymore. It's harassment." I took the cup. Steam rose from the lid. "I'll handle it."
"How?"
"By sitting there and taking it." I couldn't explain that fighting back meant breaking my promise. And breaking my promise meant losing the last thread connecting me to my father, even if that thread was just keeping my word to a man I hadn't spoken to in 3 years. The afternoon crawled. Veronica sent a company-wide email chain about maintaining professional standards and representing the firm appropriately. My name wasn't mentioned, but everyone knew. At 3 o'clock she walked past my cubicle with her usual group, Voices deliberately loud. I'm just saying, if you can't afford to dress the part, maybe consulting isn't the right field. Some people are better suited for retail. Laughter followed. Always laughter. Gerald walked past 20 minutes later. For half a second, I thought I saw discomfort in his eyes. Like maybe he knew what his daughter was doing and felt bad. But he kept walking. I stayed late that night. The office grew quiet. Easier to breathe. I opened the financial projections for the Whitmore account, the massive potential client everyone whispered about. Theodore Whitmore's company was worth billions. Landing him would transform Preston and Associates. The numbers were off. Not dramatically, but enough that someone sharp like Whitmore would notice. Interest calculations skewed, risk assessments ignoring recent volatility. Small errors that compound into disasters. I fixed them line by line. Not because anyone would thank me, Veronica would likely claim the work tomorrow, but because the work mattered even when nothing else did. By 9 o'clock the cleaning crew had arrived. I saved the file, backed it up, and left. On the L train home, I twisted the ring around my finger, wondering if keeping promises was worth this much pain. Would my father even care that I'd followed his rules? Disappeared into anonymity. Succeeded quietly while being treated like I didn't matter? The next morning the office erupted at 8:45. Nina rushed over. Eyes wide. Whitmore's coming today.
Like, right now.
They moved up the visit with no warning. Gerald's losing it. My stomach dropped. Theodore Whitmore. The Whitmore Industries. The entire floor buzzed with frantic energy. People straightened desks. Practiced smiles. Veronica was already directing traffic like a conductor. All hands in 5 minutes. The conference room filled fast. Gerald stood at the front trying to look calm, while sweat beaded on his forehead. Mr. Whitmore will be here within the hour to evaluate us for a potential partnership. This could be worth $300 million over 5 years. Veronica would lead the presentation, supported by Timothy, Jennifer, Robert. The rest of us were to stay sharp and visible. Gerald's eyes swept the room and paused on me for a beat, probably wondering if I should even be seen after yesterday, but he moved on. I tried to focus on routine work, but the nervous buzz made concentration impossible. At 9:30, the elevator chimed. Gerald hurried to greet him. Theodore Whitmore stepped onto our floor like he owned the building. Late 60s. Silver hair. Sharp eyes that missed nothing. His suit looked expensive, but worn casually. 2 security types flanked him. The presentation began behind glass walls. Veronica stood animated at the front, gesturing at slides that contained my corrected work. Whitmore's face stayed neutral, listening, calculating. An hour later he stood, said something to Gerald, and walked out onto the floor. The office tensed. Was he leaving? Instead he began touring. Gerald scrambling behind him trying to narrate. Whitmore moved slowly between cubicles, studying real work. People straightened. I kept my head down, focusing on my spreadsheet. I didn't need his attention. But I have this habit when concentrating deeply, twisting the ring, spinning it while I think. My mother did the same. I was deep in a formula when I felt it, the sensation of being watched. I looked up. Theodore Whitmore stood 3 feet from my cubicle, frozen, staring at my hand. His face had gone completely white. His mouth opened slightly. One security guard stepped closer. Concerned. That ring. His voice came out rough. Where did you get that ring? The office noise faded. People turned. All I could see was this powerful man looking at my mother's ring like he'd seen a ghost. It was my mother's. Your mother's.
He repeated it slowly.
Where did your mother get it? My father gave it to her. Your father's name. Every instinct screamed to protect the secret I'd guarded for 10 years. But something in his shocked expression, the desperate hope, unlocked the words. Lawrence Collins. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then Whitmore screamed. Not a shout. A raw sound of pure shock that made the entire floor jump. Heads popped up. Veronica turned behind the glass. They have no idea who you are. His voice boomed across the office. Lawrence Collins is your father. The silence that followed was absolute. Then chaos erupted. Gerald rushed over, face cycling through confusion, concern,
Fear.
Mr. Whitmore. I don't understand. Lawrence Collins is your father. Whitmore's voice shook. The Lawrence Collins? I could only nod. My throat had closed. Veronica pushed through the growing crowd. What's going on?
Dad.
Whitmore ignored her, words pouring out. Lawrence Collins was the greatest venture capitalist of his generation. He built Whitmore Industries from my idea and $12,000. He invested everything,
Turn it into billions.
his golden touch, his strategies still taught at Harvard. Then 15 years ago, after a family tragedy, he vanished.
People gathered.
The whole office watched. Nina stood with hands over her mouth. Timothy and Jennifer emerged from the conference room. Some thought he died. Whitmore continued quietly. Others thought he'd lost his mind. No one knew the truth. He just disappeared. I've managed his investments for 15 years. He asked me to respect his privacy. I kept that promise. I never knew he had a daughter. This is ridiculous. Veronica snapped. She's making this up. She works in a cubicle wearing thrift store clothes. Whitmore turned to her, expression making her step back. That ring she's wearing, I was there when Lawrence bought it. London. 17 years ago. We just closed a major deal. There was an estate auction at Christie's, items from European aristocracy. This ring belonged to the Duchess of Cambridge in the 1890s. The sapphire came from Kashmir. The setting was designed by a master jeweler whose pieces are in museums. The office went dead silent. Lawrence said it was perfect for your mother, matched her grace, her elegance, her strength. The bidding went very high, but he wouldn't stop. He paid $2.3 million for that ring. The number landed like a physical blow. Someone gasped. Veronica made a choking sound. $2.3 million thrift store ring. Whitmore's voice turned cold. That's what you called it yesterday in the meeting, isn't it? When you humiliated this woman in front of 20 colleagues. Veronica's face drained of color.
I didn't know. I thought.
You saw someone you thought was beneath you and decided cruelty was entertainment. Whitmore looked at Gerald. And you sat there and did nothing.
Gerald tried to speak.
Whitmore cut him off. I was here early this morning. I passed your conference room during yesterday's meeting. I heard every word. Whitmore turned back to me, expression gentler. Your father and I were best friends. When he withdrew, he asked me to manage his assets and keep his privacy. I knew he'd lost his wife. I didn't know about a daughter. He wanted you to succeed on your own. I heard myself say. He wanted to know if I could build something myself. And you have. Whitmore smiled. Do you know what the Collins Trust is worth now? With 15 years of compound growth, $3.7 billion. The number didn't feel real. You're one of the wealthiest women in the country. Amber, whether you knew it or not. He pulled out his phone. Your father needs to know what's happened here. Panic surged. I hadn't spoken to my father in 3 years. What would he think of his secret exposed? But Whitmore was already dialing. Lawrence, I'm here with your daughter. There's something you need to know. Around me, the office remained frozen. Veronica looked ill. Gerald's career was ending in real time. Nina had tears on her face. Whitmore stepped into Gerald's office with me and closed the door. Through the glass, the entire floor watched. Lawrence, your daughter has been working here for 3 years, subjected to systematic harassment by the vice president's daughter. I witnessed it myself yesterday. public humiliation about her clothing, her background, and especially about the ring you gave her mother. They called it a thrift store trinket. They laughed at her. Whitmore held out the phone.
He wants to talk to you.
My hand shook. 3 years of silence stretched like an ocean. Amber. My father's voice cracked. Is that really you?
Hi, Dad. I'm so sorry.
He was crying. I thought I was teaching you strength. I thought making you independent would protect you. But I just left you alone. You didn't leave me alone. I made a promise. I kept it. You shouldn't have had to. Theodore's been sending me reports. I've seen your work. Sweetheart. Your models are extraordinary. You're brilliant. I'm so proud of you. But I was wrong to ask you to hide. Wrong to make you carry that secret alone. Your mother would be furious with me. That made me laugh through tears because it was true. Things are going to change now. He said quietly. Your cover is gone. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it's time for both of us to stop hiding. We talked for another 10 minutes about the years apart, his grief, his secluded life, managing investments remotely, his decision right then to come back to the city. When I handed the phone back, I felt both lighter and heavier. Whitmore finished the call. He's coming to Chicago tonight, if possible. We emerged to controlled pandemonium. Gerald stood surrounded by senior partners summoned in panic. Veronica sat at her desk, staring at nothing. Whitmore addressed the room. Voice carrying. Preston and Associates will not be receiving the Whitmore Industries contract. I cannot partner with a firm that tolerates the treatment I've witnessed here. Gerald made a desperate sound. Whitmore continued coldly. You sat in a meeting while your daughter publicly mocked an employee. You allowed a toxic environment to flourish because confronting it was inconvenient. I built my company on integrity and respect. I won't compromise those values. $300 million gone. One senior partner stepped forward. Mr. Ashford. My office now. Gerald followed like a man to execution. Whitmore turned to Veronica. This story will spread. The business community is small. What happened here today? How you treated Lawrence Collins's daughter. How you mocked a ring worth more than you'll earn in a decade. People will hear. Your reputation is damaged beyond repair. Veronica looked up. Eyes red.
You can apologize to Amber if you'd like.
Though I suspect you're more sorry you got caught. She looked at me, really looked for the first time in 3 years. Fear. Embarrassment. Maybe genuine remorse buried deep. Mostly the realization that cruelty has consequences. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know, I said. And that was all. Nina hugged me tight. You're a billionaire. An actual billionaire. And you've been eating grocery store sandwiches next to me for 3 years. The sandwiches were good, I said. And she laughed through tears. Other colleagues approached with careful respect, people who'd ignored me for years suddenly remembering every conversation. I accepted their attention politely. It wasn't genuine connection. It was recalibration based on new information. By noon, Gerald was in a board meeting. By 2, rumors said he was being asked to resign. Veronica left at 3 carrying a box of her belongings. Not looking at anyone. I spent the afternoon gathering my own things. Several people assured me I could stay, that changes were coming. But I was done hiding.
Nina helped me pack.
What are you going to do now? I don't know. See my father. Figure out who I am when I'm not keeping secrets. Maybe build something new. Whatever it is, you'll be amazing at it. At 5, Whitmore found me by my empty cubicle. Ready? Your father's already on his way. I told him I'd bring you to dinner, if that's okay with you. I looked around one last time, at the cubicle where I'd spent 3 years proving myself to people who didn't care. At the conference room where Veronica had tried to break me. At the space I'd occupied while keeping a promise that cost so much. Then I picked up my bag and followed him to the elevator. In the car, I twisted my mother's ring, my $2.3 million inheritance, my hidden treasure, my constant reminder. The sapphire caught the late afternoon light, throwing blue shadows across my hands. "Your father asked me to tell you something," Whitmore said as we drove through Chicago traffic. "He said you kept your promise. You proved you could succeed on your own. Now it's time to discover what you can do without limits." The city passed outside the window. Somewhere in it my father was waiting. After 3 years of silence, we would have dinner. We would talk. We would figure out what came next. I didn't know what my future looked like, whether I'd step into my father's world, build my own empire, or find an entirely different path. But for the first time in years, I didn't have to hide. Didn't have to diminish myself. Didn't have to apologize for existing. The ring sparkled on my finger, no longer a secret I guarded, but a bridge between who I'd been and who I was becoming. I was Amber Collins, daughter of Lawrence Collins, keeper of promises, survivor of cruelty, and finally, completely, undeniably free. Yet as the car pulled up to the restaurant, and I saw my father standing outside, older, grayer, but with the same sharp eyes that once commanded boardrooms, questions lingered. Had the promise truly protected me? Or had it cost me years I could never get back? Would the business world now see me only as Lawrence Collins's daughter? Or would I still have to fight to prove my own worth? And what of Veronica and Gerald? Would their public fall serve as a warning? Or would the cycle of cruelty simply shift to new targets? My father stepped forward as I exited the car. For a moment we just looked at each other. Then he pulled me into a hug that smelled like old books and faint whiskey and home. "Welcome back, Amber," he said quietly. I hugged him tighter. The weight I'd carried for 10 years didn't vanish, but it felt lighter, shared now. The ring pressed between us, warm and solid. That night over dinner we talked for hours. He told me about the years in seclusion, the guilt that had kept him away, the pride he'd felt reading Whitmore's reports about my work. I told him about the small victories in the cubicle, the loneliness of the secret, the moments I'd almost broken. By the time dessert arrived, the question of what came next still hung in the air. But for the first time it felt like possibility instead of burden. The sapphire caught the candlelight between us, beautiful, valuable, and finally no longer hidden. In the end, the real shock wasn't the billions or the ring's worth. It was realizing that the promise I'd kept so faithfully had both saved me and nearly destroyed me, and that freedom, when it finally arrived, carried its own heavy questions about identity, forgiveness, and what success truly means when the world suddenly knows your name.